Celebrating 30 years of phenomenal trend forecasting, 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. Here's Gerald Celente with today's trends in the news.
Hi, this is Gerald Celente. It's Thursday, November 17th, 2016, and here are some of today's trends in the news. Well, on the market front, everything's up a little bit, almost, and everything's down a little bit, almost. So, here's the deal. Over in Asia, everything's up except Hang Seng, just hanging a little lower. Europe up, US up, oil down, and gold down. So what's going on? Well, Janet Yellen came out today, and those odds for a rate hike in December keep moving up higher. That's right. She said a rate hike, quote, could be appropriately relatively soon. Appropriate relatively soon. Who speaks like that? Appropriate relatively soon. Fed shares, you know why? Because all they speak is...
Come on now, that ain't even bullshit. That's horse shit.
So, the U.S. markets have enjoyed a sharp rally after the U.S. election, with Republican Donald Trump raising prospects of higher infrastructure spending as well as financial deregulation. And again, as we've been pointing out, those bank stocks, now they're up over 10% entering Thursday. So, they're also saying inflation's going to go up. We're breaking this down as we see it, and we're doing the best we can. This infrastructure spending is not going to be in one boost. Inflation, if there's something else pushing it up, it may happen from another place, but not infrastructure spending. So, what's going on? I think there's a lot of high expectation and not a lot of fact. For example, we just saw some economic data come out here in the States. Check this out. Housing starts soared more than 25% in October. Well, this is November, and now Trump is in. Hey, those interest rates went up already 50 basis points, didn't they? Yeah. And now mortgage rates are over 4% for 30-year. So those housing starts, that doesn't mean housing buys. And I want to keep going over this and going over it so we can get a clear picture of it. And weekly jobless claims dropped to their lowest level since November of 1973. That's positive. Now, oil was up, and then it went down. So here's why it went up. Because the energy minister out of Saudi Arabia, he said, quote, I'm still optimistic that the consensus reached in Algeria for capping production will translate, God willing, into caps on states' levels and fair and balanced cuts among countries. God willing, huh? Which God you talking about? The God that you like to behead people with? That God? The Sunni Shia God war you got going on since the 7th century? And it's no different in the West. Welcome to the 10th Crusade. Are those the gods that you're talking about? Hey, you're using God's name in vain from where I come from, because God doesn't give a goddamn about your oil prices, capisce? Hey, you don't understand that. Maybe you got that, eh, King? King Sheik. I'm the Sheik of Araby. Sheik. A bunch of crap. Anyway, what else we have here? So the reason it went down after the oil minister spoke was because stockpiles at the U.S. crude delivery hub in Cushing, Oklahoma, increased 700,000 barrels last week. So there you go. Yesterday I read it went up on the energy information build was 5.3 million barrels. So it's an oversupply issue. But maybe God will come down and straighten it all out. Now, how many people did you kill in Yemen? God. Using God. Anyway, I want to keep this going so we understand where the economy is going from the reports that we're getting. And by the way, the Wall Street Journal is a shadow of what it used to be. Less and less information. It's really very, very sad what's happened to it. So story, stimulus hopes boost dollar to 13-year high. Now remember, the dollar's at a 13-year high. The yuan, the Chinese currency, is at an 8-year low. And other currencies going down as well. But why and what will it mean? And that's what we're trying to do the best we can in putting this picture into perspective and getting away from the hype and the hope. The dollar touched a 13-year high Wednesday, powered by rising U.S. bond yields and expectations of ramped-up fiscal stimulus under the incoming presidential administration. Rising government bond yields in the U.S. have driven up the dollar against currencies such as the euro, yuan, and others. Federal funds futures used to bet on central bank policy on Wednesday showed that investors assigned a 90.6 likelihood that the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates in December. So now let's put this together. The bump in U.S. yields, which started Wednesday, also has sucked money, that's last Wednesday, out of emerging markets. Sucked money out of emerging markets. As investors shift out of comparatively risky currencies of developing countries into treasuries, emerging market currencies have also been hurt by fears that the protectionist policies supported by Mr. Trump could hurt the economies of countries that export heavily to the U.S. So remember, this is bigger than China's yuan declining. It's across the board in emerging countries. Now, the sectors set to gain and those brace for pain as Trump triggers dollar surge. Big story, Financial Times. Investors have jumped into equities, boosting financials and healthcare stocks that stand to benefit if the new administration keeps campaign promises to loosen regulations. Okay, so the markets are going up because of stimulus and loosening regulations. A strong dollar can create negative feedback loop for the U.S. because if companies find dollar strength makes their exports more expensive, their revenues fall, putting them under more pressure. So let's get this straight. When the dollar goes up, according to this, when you're trying to sell U.S. products, they become too expensive. Oil prices are also under pressure because countries buy oil in dollar terms. If their currencies are weaker, they buy less. Conversely, as the currencies get cheaper, the thought is countries like China, as their currencies get cheaper, will export more. So let's put this strong dollar, looser regulations story into as much perspective as we can. Again, dollar hits 13-year peak on rising expectations of rate increases and stimulus. The popular measure of the dollar climbed to the highest level in more than 13 years, driven by expectations of an increase in U.S. interest rates and significant fiscal stimulus and concerns about the rise of populist forces in Europe. Again, this is all speculation. Yes, the populist forces. The dollar's getting stronger because the global economy is getting weaker. You look at the numbers that just came out of Europe, their GDP increased for the first up till now of the year 1.4%. The stimulus is not as much as they're saying. And the protectionist made in USA could only go so far. Yes, we've lost a ton of jobs. I have the number in front of me, actually. 5.4 million manufacturing jobs since Slick Willie Clinton put it in place. actually from 1997, and 82,000 factories have been lost. The problem is, it's a different world now. And a lot of the products are being brought from other places around the world. So you have shipping costs. Will it become a self-sustaining economy? Overall, although they say negatives outweigh the positives, I believe yes. I believe that more made in USA will help the country. And yes, prices may go up, but when prices go up, wages might go up too. How about that? So, moving on to some other news. Remember I read to you about Facebook yesterday? Well, more data came out on it. Facebook admits some of its ad-rich metrics were out by as much as 55%. 55%. There is no way that anybody knows the efficacy of these ads. None at all. The whole thing to me is a scam. Unless you're different than everybody that I know, including myself, when an ad pops up, you try to get rid of that thing as soon as you can. But they admit some of the ad-rich metrics were out by as much as 55%. Remember, we had another story going back. We saw data that was off about 80%. They don't repeat that, though. Hey, maybe they lied and didn't miss it. Who knows? And speaking about fear and hysteria, oh, the media is going upside down, boy. They want to stop all these fake sites out there. Fake content pressures web giants. Yep, fake content. They're blaming fake content for Trump's victory. Fake content? Hey, how about the fake content that lied us into the Iraq war? You know, the weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda and all that yellow cake in aluminum tubes that Saddam Hussein was cooking up to make a nuclear weapon. How about that fake news put out by the prostitutes, the slimy little toilet paper of record? Take it and use it, and you know what you can do with it. New York Times. How about the Gulf of Tonkin incident that never happened? One lie after another from you folks, and you're BSing about fake content? You disgusting little people. Israeli settlers' bill advances. Israeli parliament gave preliminary approval to a bill that will legalize settlements on Palestinian land in the West Bank. Israeli-occupied territory. Isn't that a nice term? Israeli-occupied territory. Hey, the United States occupies Iraq and Afghanistan. Why can't they occupy? Well, there's no such thing as Palestine. I forgot. That's what Golda Meir said. They just made that name up. And of course, now listen to the way they write it. An Israeli-occupied territory in violation of current Israeli law, and some say in breach of international law. Not some say. Only little low-life pieces of crap like Rory Jones of the Wall Street Journal would write,
Warning, warning, bullshit alert.
it's against international law. You're stealing other people's land. But, hey, don't say anything bad about it, because then you'd be called anti-Semite. Yeah, just like calling a piece of crap like Eric Holder and little Colin Powell, because they're black, calling me a racist. Yeah. Crap comes in all races, creeds, and colors, and genders. Oh, and speaking about genders, yep, Hillary Clinton, she's out there. Yes, an emotional Clinton tells supporters to believe, fight for our values, and never give up. Our values. Clinton's GMOs, you like them values? Hey, add those up. Deregulation of communications industry, stealing all our dough and giving it to the banks with the deregulation of the Glass-Steagall Act. Is that? Oh, I know the values, the murderous wars that you and your low-life, slick-willy husband love to wage. Those values. How can I forget that? And then speaking of little people with little minds and no morality that like to shoot their mouth off and play the higher game, that little magazine, The Nation of Nothing. This is their cover. Mourn, resist, organize, onwards. They were big Hillary Clinton supporters. Today, we recommit to mobilize against hatred, bigotry, misogyny, and economic pain. Hey, you little creeps. How come you're not organizing against war that the Clintons love so much? I'll tell you why. Because you're just like the rest of those little liberals, little cowardly people who take every cheap shot they can and then send our nation to war, and you're silent. Not a peep. This is Gerald Celente, and that's some of today's trends in the news.